Every fire starts small.
Welcome to Decoding TV's coverage of Smoke on Apple TV Plus. Smoke is a new Apple TV Plus show based loosely on the true crime podcast called Firebug. This show follows Dave Goodson, played by Taron Egerton, an arson investigator and former firefighter for the Umberland Fire Department, who's joined by Michelle Calderon, played by Journey Smollett, a detective who's assigned to assist Goodson. The two of them are looking for two serial arsonists who've been active in the area. One of the arsonists they call the Divide and Conquer, or DNC arsonist, because he sets multiple fires in different areas at once. The other one they call Milk Jug because he uses milk jugs as incendiary devices. Now, as with many Apple TV Plus shows, there's a fairly significant plot development that happens early on in this one that completely reorients the TV show and changes what you think you're watching. We will not discuss that at first. We'll start by discussing our overall thoughts on the show, but then we're going to spoil everything through the first 5 episodes of the show, including what that major development is. And then at the very end of the conversation, I have actually watched the entire season. Patrick has not. He's only seen the first 5 episodes. But I will share some non-spoilery thoughts on what I thought about the entire series. And also, if you're a decodingtv.com paid subscriber, thank you so much for supporting the podcast. We will have a bonus episode covering the final 4 episodes of Smoke if you're a paid subscriber for decodingtv.com. So that is what is in store for you in terms of our coverage. But Patrick Klepek, let's get to it. What did you think of the first 5 episodes of Smoke on Apple TV Plus?
It's as you said, and we'll get into more specifics and spoilers. Kind of a tale of two shows. Presents as one thing. Do you want to watch smart people like being a detailed procedural with some really charming actors about the kind of procedural I haven't really seen before, about like investigating like fires. Like, I've seen firefighters, I've seen fire in shows, but I really haven't seen a procedural that really gets into the nitty-gritty of like what makes fire work and the folks who investigate them like solve those crimes. That could be an interesting show. And it's sort of that show, but then becomes something pretty different that is much campier, I would argue, just by being wrapped up in the aesthetics of prestige TV. More of a character drama, more of a thriller, and doesn't leave all of the procedural stuff behind of I want to watch smart people doing smart things, and that is satisfying. I don't know where it all ends up. I have not watched the end of the show. But I will say, I think I liked the show it presented the first time around than what it's become.
Right.
But I'm still having a really good time with it. It's just not the show that I thought it was. And I kind of think I wanted more of that first show, but there's enough of what I liked for the show opens as. And there's so many tremendous actors in the show, and it's shot so well. Like, I'm in it. I didn't expect to be getting into a show that I was going to judge based on where its twists land. And that's a different kind of show than I thought I was getting into. And again, it's a show I still like. It's just the way it's all packaged is a little odd. Is how I felt about it. How about you?
I think that's very astute as usual, Patrick Klepek. I'm going to start by saying this. I watched the entire series in 2 days, maybe 3.
Okay.
And so there's very few shows that can get me to do that, right? Like,
all right. It's a very digestible show. Like,
it's a very digestible show. So it's like, okay, like it goes down easy. And arguably, by the way, that's actually the best way to consume this show. Like, maybe just wait until the end and watch it all at once. That actually might be what I recommend. But very few shows have that hold on me. And so there's something worth noting about the fact that, hey, this is like a really kind of addicted show, very engrossing show. And therefore, like on some level, it's worth checking out for that reason alone.
There's a little presumed innocent in this show.
A little presumed innocent. It has a presumed innocent energy, where that's not a great show either.
Is this show good? Right? I don't know. Do I care? Ooh, I don't. I recommended Presumed Innocent to so many people. I was like, look. There are quote better shows out there, but like, damn, that was. I think I described it as delicious. Like, that was a delicious show. And Smoke, I haven't seen the end. I don't think it hits the highs of Presumed Innocent, but there is a melodramatic flair to Smoke that I think it carries in common with Presumed Innocent, that I think is kind of what you're gesturing at with like the speed at which you watched the show.
Yeah, I would say that Presumed Innocent had a much better handle on TV as a format, right? Because I think it was David E. Kelly that did Presumed Innocent, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It felt more like control of the episodic nature,
Yes,
whereas
that's what I'm
Smoke
saying.
is closer to, you know, mini movies.
Prestige TV show that's spun wildly out of control.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
So David E. Kelly did do the new Presumed Innocent, and yeah, like every episode of Presumed Innocent ended in a place where you're like, well, I guess I have to watch the next one.
What am I supposed to do? Anything else in my life? No.
Yeah. Smoke gets close to that. It doesn't quite hit those highs as you said, but it gets close.
It's got some good cliffhangers.
Yeah, it's got some good cliffhangers.
Really good. Like there's a sequence with a crash is what also, but like there's some good like, And I was watching it week to week. I didn't. A handful of episodes were out when I started watching it, and then I could have asked for access to them. I'm sure Apple would have given them to me, but instead I was waiting. I had some time before you and I were discussing. I was like, I wanted to actually sit with it in the form that it was distributed to see how that felt, and like that is, I do miss that. I do kind of like
right.
And I'll say to the same point where you consumed it really quickly because you could watch all of them by having access to them. I guess a sign of a good show, or a show that like I kind of want to know what's next, was I was hitting the little Apple TV button, so like you know, up next.
Wow.
And like it wasn't
You're
there.
refreshing. You're refreshing
I clicked
the app.
in to like go to show, and it said, "Oh, it actually won't be there," because what Apple TV does,
you have to add to watch list.
Well, no, it's not that. They list Smoke as a show that debuts on Fridays, but it debuts on Thursday night.
Right. Yeah.
So, and it's not like midnight on Thursday. It's like 8 p.m. or like a reasonable time. But so I basically was refresh, close the app, go back in. Is it Smoke time yet? And that's a sign of a show that I'm not watching purely out of obligation.
Right. Now, I will say that, but by the way, one of the things that annoys me about Apple TV and also Hulu, tell me if you've ever encountered this, Patrick, where they will list episodes of the show that are not yet available.
Yeah.
They will list episodes of the show that are not yet. I just don't understand why you'd ever do that. I mean, what's his name? Kevin Garnett. To quote Kevin Garnett in Uncut Gems, why would you show it to me if I can't have it? Why would you show it to me if I can't have it?
I do think part of it is I appreciate it because it is these days you cannot reliably load up a show and know, can I watch all of it? Like the distribution method, the scheduling is different than how it used to be. It used to be when you and I were growing up, a show was on every week when it was on air, and then if it was off air, you're waiting for the next season. These days, you could watch 2 episodes, you could watch 3. You know what I mean? So I do sort of appreciate the clarity of, hey, this comes out on these days, and you know exactly when it's gonna drop. I mean, look at Stranger Things. You know, October, Thanksgiving, New Year's Eve, Christmas. So
yeah, I consumed these episodes really quickly. I really enjoyed the show, and also. I agree with your commentary about the tone of the show. I think this show, in my opinion, has a different tone. It has the tone of a show that is different than what it actually is. Because the tone of the show is, this is an capital I important show. This is a capital I important show about the nature of fire, about the nature of police work, and how, like, you know, consider the ACAB of it all, and income inequality, you know, and like, hey, let's talk about how there's a suppressed underclass in society and such.
Oh, how do you get respect? How do you climb the damn ladder, David?
Yeah. So all these things, it's like we want to be the Wire for like all these things. And in reality, it's just like a pulpy, fun show that you should not take seriously at all, in my opinion. That's kind of where I land on this. Is it has this tone of like, hey, we have this serious Tom York theme song, and and it's like, hey, we're gonna just I want you to meditate on the nature of fire, and it's like, no, that's not. That's not what the show is.
Your Tom York sounds suspiciously like a church like I've gone to church, like meditate on the fire.
That's right. Basically, you know. Having said all that, as Patrick alluded to, it is a beautiful show. Like this,
Yeah.
Apple TV Plus shows always look like they cost $1 billion, and this one looks like it cost $1 billion. It looks amazing. A lot of times when you watch fire on screen, it looks CG. It looks fake. Now there are some CG looking fires in the show. I'm not saying that it's not a thing, but there's a lot of fire in the show that looks like they actually set those fires.
I buy the world. Like
Right.
you
you buy the world, and so yeah, it looks great. The performances are great. Taron Egerton is actually awesome in the show. Like,
I agree.
He has a very layered performance, what he's trying to do, and it's great. It's really, really, and it's worth watching just for the chemistry between him and Journey Smollett alone. That's the thing. That is when the show is at its best. It feels like the show doesn't understand what is best about the show. And in my opinion, the chemistry between Taron Egerton and Journey Smollett is like, hey, let's have, this is like a kind of, you're watching these two people interact with each other, bounce off each other. The show is just doing all this other shit. It actually, yeah, the show's doing,
invents reasons to separate them.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
completely arbitrary reasons that are not foreshadowed in the show at all.
Yeah.
That are not the result of tensions or suspicions that would like force each other to go into a different corner and separate in the show. But like, the 5 episodes in, I'm in a lengthy period where these characters have not been around each other, and
yeah,
it's a testament to the some of the other actors that they're with. Like, I did not know that John Leguizamo was going to have like a significant part in this show, and he's awesome. He's great.
Yeah, he's great. He's playing a character he doesn't usually play.
No, so, like really against type in a like fantastic sort of way. But I'm with you. Like, the literal fireworks in this show are when the two of them, and it feels like what happens in the show is like, oh, once the script sort of flips, like sort of different mystery reveals itself in terms of what the show is going to be answering as a core question. And as a result of that, we got to separate these two until that thing is going to happen. And it stinks because I'm with you. Like, the show is at best when they are on screen with one another. Like, the sequences where they're just in the office, like drinking or like going over notes, like they're just, they're really electric on screen with one another. And the show just goes out of its way to take that away from you, the viewer, from me, from you.
I would agree. All right, Patrick. So I think it's time to talk about what actually happens in episode 2 of the show. So we're going to talk about episode 2 of the show, and we will not spoil everything through episode 5 of the show. But in episode 2 of the show, which, by the way, is a development that is heavily hinted at in the trailers, I didn't
see the trailer. Damn,
right.
I pulled a Jeff Kanata, and
good.
It worked. I hate that because I love trailers.
there is a conversation in the trailer that happens like really late on in the show that hasn't even aired yet, that like hints at what occurred. But you find out that, as I mentioned, they are trying to pursue two killers, the DNC killer and the milk jug killer, both of whom have set a lot of fires, and that Taron Egerton is the DNC arsonist. Now, did this surprise you? I'll say I was moderately surprised. I wasn't completely shocked because I had heard that there was a big plot development like this in episode 2. Like, oh, watch episode 2. Like, it's going to completely change what the show is. So I was like, okay, well, what could it be? I mean, one of the things that it could be is one of the people is actually committing the crimes, right? And so that's actually what it ends up being. But what was your reaction to this, Patrick Klepek?
Surprised, but not surprised. Like, surprised in the sense that I had not seen the trailers. You suggested this at a show. I looked at like the write-up and was like, oh, this seems like this could be fun. So I knew nothing about the podcast that this is like loosely inspired by, which is maybe something we should talk about because I don't actually know much of the connection between the source material and which Firebug
is the name of the podcast, and it's based off of a real life story that happened. Like, this is a real life scenario where there was a guy who actually set this number of fires. Yeah.
So I guess I was
John Orr, by the way, is the name of the real life guy. So
Gotcha.
Anyway, go ahead.
I was not surprised, but then in retrospect, like thinking about the show I just watched, I was like, oh, yeah, I guess actually that's like a pretty good twist for a show with this premise. That adds up. But because I hadn't seen any of the marketing materials, I had no sense that a twist was coming. So it did land, I think, how the show would want it to for land, which is you going, oh shit, as like the sequence plays out when he's in the aisle full of the chips, because that's the whole bit, like the chips and the talk of the limp and all that. So that worked as like, it put a smile on my face. Like that's when I realized I was watching something, whether you want to call it pulp or camp, or like it's something that like the melodramatic material I'm about to watch feels very funny contrasted against the prestige aesthetic that the show was filmed on, which is honestly, I love that contrast sometimes. Sometimes it is fun.
That's interesting that's the thing that you found to be camp, because that's like, it's a real life thing. It actually happened in real life, right? So what is just the idea of it's such a wild concept? You're like, oh, that's kind of inherently silly in some ways.
Well, it's presented as a twist, right? Like, so right. Like, I think like the narrative structure, you're meant to go like be surprised. It's not a headline, it doesn't open with that. Like, we're about to tell you the story of a guy, you know what I mean? So like in and of itself, like the show's written to surprise you. And so then the surprise then informs my emotional reaction to how the show is sort of, again, I think I thought I was going to watch a more hard edged procedural. And then when it pivots to a surprise, the way that's presented came across to me as, maybe camp's the wrong word, but melodramatic, where it's like, I'm, presumed innocent. It's a show that deals with lots of serious subjects, but is really like a melodramatic story about like hyperactive characters and drama. And that is fun. That is, again, delicious. And I think Smoke operates with a similar language. The difference with Presumed Innocent was that I kind of knew that from the show is exclaiming that from the jump. And I think that's part of a lot of David E. Kelly's, like, has often operated in that mode with a lot of the work that he has done to turn those dials to different degrees. But here I just thought I was getting into like a very serious arson procedural. And it's like, oh, like I'm actually getting into a character study that I think has used a real life criminal act to give it some structure.
I didn't even come to that conclusion immediately, because I thought, oh, this is going to be a cat and mouse game between these two people, and one's trying to catch the other, and it kind of becomes that, but like you said, it's also concerned with all these other. It's also doing all these other things as well, and so yeah.
Well, Smollett is not Michelle's who she plays in the show. Her character is not reduced to just a like really smart detective trying to catch the villain. Like, and like to the show's credit, like it spends a lot of time like with her. Who is she? What informs her emotionally about like how she's acting, and to a degree that I'm a little surprised the show is that interested in like fleshing out both of the leads to that degree, because you could sort of just reduce it to, again, that procedural shows tend to be more interested in the procedure part than in the characters, and here they spend a lot of time with who is Taron Egerton, like how does he act at home, how does he act with like this child in his life that he's clearly does not know how to deal with, how does he put on all these different masks, and it gives the show a depth that I have appreciated and enjoyed, because the show doesn't have to spend all that time there, but it chooses to, and I think it's better for it.
Yeah, I think that's, again, very astute. The idea that it's diving into these characters instead, for sure. I think. And did you find some of those backstories interesting, Patrick Klepek?
I like both characters.
We learn a lot about Michelle Calderon's history, and
all that stuff mostly works for me. I don't. The Freddy like, where are you at with the? So obviously, one of the things that's interesting is we're learning a lot about one of the quote villains of the show. Like Milk Jug, like one of the arsonists. Who is this? There's someone who's a fry cook at a fast food chicken restaurant who, wants to do better in the world, but like clearly looks old. Like he looks like he's in his 40s, 50s, like has been somebody, frying chicken for probably most of his life. Like hasn't really stepped up. I mean, there's a scene that portrays him like, he goes home and there's no lights on and he watches pornography. It's a pretty limited understanding of like who this person is, especially relative to the insights we get with our main characters. So I'm wondering how has the Freddy stuff landed for you, given that, again, often in these shows we find out backstory about these characters later, but we're learning this in parallel with the acts he's committing
Yeah.
and the tension that's ratcheting up between our two co-leads, and the fact that they are engaged in a bit of a cat and mouse, even though only one of them realizes that it's a cat and mouse situation.
So far in the show, I would say the Freddy stuff is really working for me. And I have to say, this is one of the best performances in anything I've watched this year. Freddy is played by an actor named Ntare Guma Mbaho Muine, I believe. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. But that guy in real life is 57 years old, 58 years old. There's a joke in the show where he says he's 43 or 42 or whatever, right? And he and it's like, oh my god, that is a rough 42, you know. And so he looks much older than he is.
43. That's been a tough 4 decades, dog.
But I actually had to go and watch interviews with this guy because it's like, I want to see what this guy's like in real life. Completely unrecognizable.
I had to imagine, like,
yeah, it's just he's like he speaks with like a very normal cadence, and you know, just like he's like a conventional actor in terms of how he presents.
Right.
And the transformation he makes as Freddy is really astonishing. Now, again, I think the issue I have with Freddy is not him as a character. The show makes Freddy's arson work out to be really awesome. What I mean by that is like, it's like, oh, this guy has a very terrible, challenging life, and being an arsonist is how he can be free, how he can kind of live the most freest version of himself and take control in a way that he can't in any other element of his life. And that's like a very inherently compelling idea. Where the show tries to venture out into like anything beyond beyond a character study of like, oh, Freddy represents some other idea of like people who cannot make it up, like advance up in the world, people like social immobility in the United States, like that stuff I think is a complete failure. Like just because the show is, in my opinion, at its heart, deeply silly. Like there's a lot of like silly things about the show.
Yes.
And so it's having reached the end of the show, it is really difficult for me to take anything that the show says seriously. It's a fun time. It's a fun. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with the show being a fun time, but the show thinks it's trying to say something important, and I don't think it really is, in my opinion. And when I say the show thinks it, what I'm saying is like the aesthetics of the show, the color palette, the dialogue, you know, the score, right, the tone of the theme song, like all these things I think create this feeling of like this is a prestige important TV show. And at the end of the day, some of the plot developments are so outlandish and silly that it's very difficult to like kind of engage with it on that level.
Like Smoke should be airing on CBS. Like we should be in season 3 of Smoke, and like they still haven't, like the two co-leads still have not like been able to pin it down on one another.
Yeah. I'm going to say this though, Patrick Klepek. One of the things I really love about this show is the depiction of fire. I've already talked about how practical, like it looks really practical, but
yeah.
In addition, I don't know about you, but you really just understand. You know, I don't know how realistic the show is in its depiction of like lighting fires.
Who cares?
But if it's even close to realistic, it makes lighting fires and killing people out to be really, really easy. Like it's just like all you need is like 3 items, and you can light fires that will like completely destroy people's lives and possibly kill people. We live on in a 3-story house, kind of like a townhouse style design, and because I'm a paranoid person. When we first arrived at the house, I always thought, hey, if there was ever a fire on the 1st or 2nd floor of this building, we would be completely screwed. And so one thing I bought very early on was a rope ladder that you can attach to the top of like we have a little balcony up there. And so you can attach this rope ladder and like climb down to safety. And I have not thought about that rope ladder for, I'm not exaggerating, like over 7 years. Right? Like I have not thought about that item for like many, many years. And after I watched Smoke, I said to my wife, let's make sure that rope ladder is still intact. let's get the rope ladder out, honey. We're doing a test of the rope ladder. And yeah, it made me feel like, okay, what is the stuff I can do to prevent fires? So on that level, I actually think it's useful. Did this give you any, you know, sense of danger for your own house, Patrick Klepek?
No. I try. I think you and I are different in. I'm not constantly envisioning worst case scenarios,
Oh,
which is
well, that's
I should probably be somewhere in the middle, especially with two young children. But I feel like, especially with kids, if you are constantly imagining the worst case scenarios, it could be a miserable way to get through the day. But
you don't say. But there is this scene in this show that's chilling, right? Where it's this couple and they're brushing this loving couple, they're brushing their
God,
teeth.
yes.
They have a his and hers sink, which is like my wife and I, we use the electric toothbrush, and they go in bed, they kiss each other goodnight, and then literally they're dead the next morning because the milk jug arsonist has used multiple incendiary devices under their house to set a fire to their place. And it's like, oh wow, that's chilling. That's chilling, you know, like,
Well, I mean,
it's,
in
like
general,
me and my wife. It's like me and my wife. Where it's like that resembles an evening with me and my wife where we're brushing our teeth, going to bed, turning off the light, and then the next morning we're dead because of a fire that someone set. You know, yeah. Anyway,
well, I was gonna say it's the fire itself is not a particular like specific fear for me, but I do think when you watch things like this and you look around your home and it's like, oh well, you know, I like that we have an automatic lock, you know, on our door. If I forget to lock it at 10 p.m., you know, it just does it on its own. It's like, oh, I did it. I've secured the house. And then if you just spend like 2 minutes looking around your house and it's like I didn't do jack. Like if somebody wanted to get into this house, like they would just break the window and get in. And like I haven't. It's all just deterrence, right? Like it's just like you know, same way that the claw, right, that people used to put on their car, like in the 90s. Like the claw was easily removable. It did not actually defend you from anything. But if you walk up to a car and have the claw, it's like, oh well, that's an extra 15 seconds of work. Like I'll go to another car that doesn't have the claw. And in theory, the reason you lock your door for the same reason. Someone tries to open the door and like, oh, well, maybe the next one is open.
So I think what you're trying to say, Patrick, is if somebody's trying to burn you alive, there's very little you can do to stop them. So why try? That's kind of what you're saying. Why try, right?
I try not to think about the fact that actually, if someone wanted to enact harm, it would not require all that much effort.
Fair.
That's the terrifying part of living in a society, David.
Okay, well, that's where Patrick and I differ. I say check to make sure you got your fire extinguishers, check to make sure you got your fire exits, and Patrick does not say those things.
Look into
as a result of watching the show.
Can I, you know, how much is a rope ladder?
They make different kinds. There's like there's one that's like metal that retracts.
I
thought about getting one of those. Yeah. Emergency ladder. You could look it up, but yeah, I thought about getting one of those as well. Fire escape ladders. You can look it up on Amazon. It's a cool concept. And I think people should invest in it, especially if you live in a weird structured house like we do. So anyway, something you think about, Patrick Klepek? Something you think about. Okay. I think it's time to talk about my reactions on the show as a whole.
I'm curious.
Cool? Is there anything else we should talk about before we get to that point, though?
I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot of like
Greg Kinnear.
He's great. He's great. He's great
cool.
in the show. He's so good. I just love watching him show up to things. A lot of what he does in this show is just here's like we're going to give you 50 lines to determine how snarky you want to be on like the snark scale, and he's really good at it. Like he doesn't function that much as he's mostly just a hallway for the other characters to walk through, and he points them in a different direction. But he's great here. I mean, my question to you, other than just did you like the show, but like because then there's a world where so we watched Presumed Innocent, and I think you and I were both pretty mixed on like where it ended up.
Yes,
right, like the actual conclusion of the story, which we won't get into, but like the messiness of the mystery and like some of the gotchas and twists at the end. I'm not sure that worked for me. Did I recommend the show to a ton of people? Yeah, because it didn't ruin it for me that where it ended. Like there was so much fun along the way in its drama. I guess that's how I would frame this show. And my question to you, like thinking it through those different lenses, where did you end with the show?
Okay, so I'm now going to share some thoughts on the end of the show. So technically, some people might find these to be spoiler. Like you might not want to know what my thoughts are on the end of the show. I will not reveal any specific plot details, but I just want to warn you, like if you don't want to know anything, you should probably skip this section. But having watched the rest of the show, I have to say, ultimately, I found it to be quite disappointing.
No,
And
no.
now, uh, there are some aspects that are satisfying, but the second half of the show made me appreciate how expertly done some of the first half of the show was.
Okay.
Right? There's so many like cool things set up in the first half of the show. The cat and mouse game between Goodson and Calderon. The Freddie Fasano, I actually really appreciate how his whole plotline is being handled. And those are the two big things I want to see paid off in a good way in
Sure.
the second
Yeah.
half of the show. And ultimately, I don't feel like the show did a good job of those two things. To me, this is a show that really feels like it goes off the rails, Patrick Klepek. This is a show that feels like it completely loses control of its storytelling and tone towards the final half of the show, where there is this whole dynamic of him writing his book in the first half of the show, right? And there is this, which I found so far to be like completely uninteresting in the first 5 episodes.
It's a convenient plot device to like
Right.
seed information to one of the other characters, honestly, is how it has felt where I'm at 5 episodes in.
He's kind of blurring the lines. The show itself kind of blurs the lines between what is reality and what is the book. Like,
Mhm.
sometimes you see enactments of stuff that would have happened in the book, but like it isn't happening in real life in the show. And to me, it feels like the final half of the show blurs those lines to an extreme degree. And so ultimately, this is so weird because it's like, is this a show I enjoyed mostly? Is the answer to that question, right? Is this a show that has really great things to recommend it? Amazing performances. The show looks great. It made me revisit the fire safety protocols in my house. Like, there's a lot of good things about the show. And then ultimately, is it a show I can? Is it a show I can recommend? I don't know, man. Like that ending is pretty freaking weak, in my opinion. And
is it a conclusion? Does it feel like we're set? I presumed Innocent, they're doing some second season. Like, we don't know the
Right.
details on what that is. It wraps up its core storyline, but there are character threads that it could sort of pick up on, or a formula. Do you, without, I guess, getting into specifics, is it you are unsatisfied with the answers, or in an era of you only start a show if you can do multiple seasons, do you feel like part of how it chooses to do that conclusion is in some ways connected to, well, we want to do a Smoke season 2?
I feel like the primary story comes to a decent conclusion.
Okay.
However, they are introducing major plot threads and characters right up to the last episode. And those do not all feel like they pay off in a good way. That's how I'll say it. So I'm not gonna. That's already probably a lot to say, but yeah. And so that's how I feel about the show as a whole. Is, do I regret watching the show? No, but would I recommend the show? Also, no. Is kind of where, right? It's like
If anything about Smoke, it's a little bit of a, if anything about Smoke sounds interesting, go watch Presumed Innocent. Like, if you're trying to scratch an itch,
like Presumed Innocent, I feel very comfortable. Right? Like, that is an
Absolutely.
addictive, enjoyable
Loved it.
show.
Loved it.
And Smoke, I've seen a lot of people, like, when I posted that I liked Smoke or that I thought the second episode was fun, I got a lot of people that are like, I pieced out after 20 minutes of the first episode. I'm like,
Interesting.
why? What was wrong with it? And they said, some people were like, it feels extremely cliche in terms of its dialogue and its plotting. It's super slow paced.
I wonder if that is connected to the aesthetic disconnect, right?
Mhm,
Because
yeah,
I
totally.
think when you are watching something this visually arresting, it is, I think, completely reasonable to then raise your expectations for the storytelling and the writing. I find it charming to, like, slop is the wrong word, but like, that's why I like to use melodramatic. Like, it's a different tone. Like, it's shot in a way that, like, shouts prestige, but the actual actions occurring are melodramatic, in which I'm not expecting it to like hit that same level of class of writing, because also I don't think it's I don't think it's trying to. Like, I think it's trying to do something different if I'm giving the writing the benefit of the doubt. But I think it's completely reasonable to get to the second episode, not vibe with the show that way, and be like, oh, like I thought I was watching a different show. And I think that can work on a couple different levels, including a disconnect from the writing and the aesthetic.
I'm not going to lie, Patrick Klepek, there have been more than one very rare occasions where I have considered fast forwarding through a section of the show because it's just like 3 minutes of slow motion shots. I'm not even exaggerating.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously I haven't done it. I would never do that to a show that I'm watching and reviewing, but I have been tempted on occasion.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that kind of speaks to what you're thinking. So there's a lot of copious slow motion in this show that screams like, we're prestige TV, we're important.
With aesthetically self-serious, right?
Yeah,
but the actual writing of the show is not. Like the characters, again, like I think silly is the right word, but like silly can be a compliment. Silly can be like, that's the tone, that's the vibe of the show. Like, but by adopting the self-serious aesthetic of prestige television and the kind of like way that's become sort of an aesthetic that you can look at a show, and maybe that's just cost, like, but it's also like the slow panning, like there's a style associated with it too. I think that creates a contradiction that can be fun.
Absolutely.
I find that contradiction fun, but I can also imagine someone being like, if I wanted to watch a CBS procedural, I'll watch the CBS procedural. What is this doing in my, Apple TV Plus prestige show?
Why am I paying, $8 a month or whatever for Apple TV Plus? Yeah.
So Peacock.
You got to listen to our main episode to understand that joke. But anyway, yeah. So I am really, really curious what you'll say about the end of the show, Patrick.
Okay, because I'm going to watch the end. I'm in. Yeah.
And we will talk about it for decodingtv.com paid subscribers as a bonus episode. But yeah, again, is a show I enjoyed? Yes. Don't really feel comfortable recommending it. And it gets even more ridiculous as time goes on, I would say.
Well, it's perfect. So, this show wraps up August 15th, which is when I'll be flying back from Paris. So I will load up these episodes. I'll be caught up, and then you and I can do a bonus episode if other folks choose to watch along as well.
Yeah, but let us know what you think about Smoke so far. Let us know in the comments at youtube.com/@decodingtv or email us at decodingtv@gmail.com. Would love to hear what you think and whether or not you agree with Patrick and myself about how good this show is. Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.